Member from Etobicoke North.
Ministre du Développement économique et de la croissance. Speaker, in the chaos that is Trump's America, there is a tide of protectionism, tariffs, unfree trade, and Depression-era populism. They've introduced, as you will know, a proposed tariff on steel and aluminum globally, part of the growing sentiment that we first saw with Buy American legislation in New York and Texas. Ontario, Speaker, is the Canadian leader of steel production. 20,000 people employed directly, 55,000 indirectly, especially concerning for communities like Sault Ste. Marie and Hamilton. The interim position of the interim PC leader tells me that they are rudderless, leaderless, and aimless, likely busy with their own internal civil war. Speaker, the opposition parties have repeatedly made it clear that they have no
I'm standing to try to respond. The member will focus on government policy.
Speaker, I find it troubling that our colleagues across the way have ostrich policies, head in the sand, and do not wish to stand up for businesses, workers, and families, particularly in Hamilton.
The minister is not helpful. The member from Leeds Grenville is warned. I happen to know what I'm doing. If the member continues on that path, he'll lose his question. Ask a government policy.
My question for the government minister is this. Will the Minister of Economic Development, Growth and Trade please explain to us why our policies regarding Bill 194 are so important?
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Speaker. I thank the member, of course, from Etobicoke North for his very pertinent question relating to government policy, specifically Bill 194. Speaker, last week in this legislature, we witnessed the very sad and sorry spectacle of members from the Conservative Opposition Caucus repeatedly standing up and on Bill 194, government policy, Speaker, repeatedly refusing to stand up for Ontario workers and businesses. It was sad, it was sorry, and Speaker, it fundamentally stands in opposition to the core responsibility that every member of this legislature has.
The member from Huron-Bruce is warned. Finish, please.
It stands in stark contrast to what the people of this province expect of their elected officials, Speaker.
The member from Niagara West Glanbrook is warned. Just put your hand up if you want a warning, and then we'll move right to naming. You may finish, please.
They can interrupt, Speaker, but they will never distract this government for standing up for the people of Ontario. We will support Bill 194.
Thank you. Be seated, please. Be seated, please. Supplementary.
Thank you, Minister of Economic Development and Growth. Speaker, on this side of the chamber, we are of course very concerned about the Buy American trend, the hard right economic nationalism, policies that Trump's own Defense, Treasury and Chief Economic Advisor oppose. And while the Tories were sleeping, Speaker, our government has taken action to protect Ontario businesses, particularly with reference to President Trump's steel tariffs. Speaker, it's no secret that the political landscape is chaotic and it seems to be random acts of policy every day. This tide of protectionism poses a serious threat to Ontario's workers and businesses, but we are not standing idly by in this potential face of discrimination. Speaker, our government is committed to sending a strong message that discrimination against Ontario workers will not be tolerated, a call that has been joined by the European Union and dozens of nations across the world. My question is this. Will the minister please inform this House about what steps Ontario is taking to protect Ontario business?
Minister.
President of the Treasury Board.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Speaker, on this side of the House, we're standing up for our workers and businesses. That's why our government has tabled We've tabled and we're committed to passing the Fairness in Procurement Act, legislation that fights for the fair treatment of Ontario workers and businesses. Sadly, Speaker, instead of standing up for Ontario businesses and Ontario workers, the PCs are sitting this one out and are choosing instead to stall the passage of Bill 194 through procedural delays and tactics in the House. Largely, we can only assume, Speaker, as a result of their own internal struggles. On this side of the House, Speaker, our government has a plan to create fairness and opportunity for Ontarians, and it's why our Premier has taken a productive, proactive and personal approach, meeting with nearly 40 U.S. governors in an attempt to influence change. Speaker, we will not take lessons from that side of the House. Instead, we will continue to stand up for Ontario workers and businesses and speak when it matters, Speaker.